the release of the 5th Scream this week, I thought it was a perfect time to finally do a Scream ranking on the channel because I'm a huge fan of the Scream franchise, but I really have not talked a lot about the franchise on the channel, even though it's one of my favorite franchises of all time. Over the past 25 years, I've come to really adore the Scream franchise. It's a lot of fun. I think it's great with the way that it mixes horror and comedy. Of course, this is just my personal ranking of the Scream franchise. It's not the end-all be-all, so make sure you share your rankings down below whether you've seen the new Scream film or not, because I'm really excited to just see all of your different answers because I'm a huge Scream fan. I'm not going to be talking about the TV show, by the way. I actually have seen all 3 seasons of the show. Maybe in another video, if you guys want, I'll delve into the actual series in its whole. But without further ado, let's get right into my last place pick. At number 5, I have Scream 3. I think most Scream fans are in agreement that Scream 3 probably is the weakest entry of the franchise. Wes Craven did return to direct Scream 3, but sadly Kevin Williamson did not return to write the film, instead being replaced by Aaron Kruger. And I think Kevin Williamson not being attached to this really shows when it comes to various aspects of the film. Out of all the Scream films so far, I definitely think that Scream 3 is the one that strays the furthest away from logic. Whether it's the stuff in the story revolving around Sidney's mother, the voice changer that can perfectly mimic anyone's voice now, and just the central conflict and mystery, it's not my favorite despite liking some of the new characters that are introduced in Scream 3. Sidney, Gale, and Dewey are great as they always are in every entry that they're in. I actually really like the way that we end Sidney's story in this film, at least until we get Scream 4 over a decade after this film. However, by this point in the franchise of Scream 3, it really felt like the formula was running out of steam. There aren't very many memorable moments in Scream 3. I think this film probably has my least favorite kills out of the entire franchise. None of them are particularly memorable. Like I said previously, I do like some of the new additions to the cast, mainly Patrick Dempsey and Parker Posey. Parker Posey especially I think is the best of the new cast. The scenes with her and Gale I think are some of the funniest moments in Scream 3. But we found a way to bring back Randy for one last video. That was another fun highlight to bring him back after his death in Scream 2. I actually don't mind the Jay and Silent Bob cameo, even though it is kind of random just because I'm a big fan of Jay and Silent Bob. And finally, I don't think the killer reveal in this film is all that memorable. I think that Roman is probably the most bland of the Ghostface reveals. I think he's just not a very great character all around. Even before he was revealed to be Ghostface, he just wasn't a great character. So it wasn't all that interesting in the climax when Sidney takes him on and Sidney once again perseveres because Sidney's a badass. But when the bar is set so high with the Scream franchise, you're allowed to have like a middling entry that nobody really thinks is the best or anything. It's an extremely underwhelming sequel. It's not awful by any means, but compared to the other great films in the franchise, it's just kind of there. At number 4, I have Scream 2. When you're coming off the first film in the franchise being a horror classic that rejuvenates the horror genre as a whole, you kind of set yourself up for lofty expectations with a sequel, and I think this is a solid sequel by most means, but you can very much tell that they rushed this film into production. Releasing just a little bit less than a year after the original film, Scream 2 does a solid enough job continuing and expanding the story. Once again, Wes Craven's directing here is great. The writing from Kevin Williamson still is a lot of fun. The humor is sharp, poking fun at sequels and the rules that come along with them. Like in most sequels, we do try our best to up the ante here, and we do that a lot with the kills. The kills in Scream 2 are very bloody and very gory. Ghostface this time around seems a lot angrier, and you can really tell with the big surprises we have all throughout Scream 2 and the way that we kill off certain characters you didn't expect to die, like Randy. Randy's death in the film is some great shock value because I really wasn't expecting him to get killed off in that way. And personally, I think it's maybe one of the very few mistakes the franchise has had, killing him off in Scream 2, because I would have loved to have seen where we've taken the character in future installments. As per usual, I do like the arc that we go on with Sidney Prescott in Scream 2. I think she has the best arc out of the original cast. As the mystery unfolds in Scream 2, we really show more why she's such a great character, having her guard up from the first film, but she's still showing resilience in the face of yet another threat that's put in front of her. Same goes for the development between Dewey and Gale as a relationship is blossoming. The only thing I'm not a big fan of when it comes to Dewey in this film is he seems to have gotten a lot dumber. That's just my observation though. It felt like to me Dewey in this film is much different than the Dewey that we had in the original film, just the stuff that he does. Unlike the mystery in the first film of who the killer behind the Ghostface mask is, the mystery in Scream 2 isn't all that compelling, not as exciting. I think it's kind of obvious if you kind of pay attention to the film who at least one of the killers are. I do think Timothy Olyphant is a great actor. I think he's giving it his all, having this over-the-top crazy performance as Mickey. Mickey reveal always was kind of weird to me in context because Billy Loomis's mom found him on the internet and then enrolled him into college. Just seems kind of odd for 1997. Plus, on top of that, all the plastic surgery that Billy Loomis's mom did, so we didn't recognize her till the very end. I think Laurie Metcalf does a phenomenal job hamming it up on screen as Billy Loomis's mom, but it does add a little bit of cartoonishness to everything that happens in the final act of the film, even if it is a very exciting finale. The formula here is still very fresh. I think with a little bit more time, though, and not rushing this film into production, it could could have been an even better sequel. At number 3, I have Scream 4. With 11 years passing between Scream 3 and Scream 4, I was a bit nervous how we would approach a fourth film because of the fact that everything at the end of Scream 3 felt pretty conclusive, but I think Wes Craven did a great job reinvigorating the franchise for a modern audience of that time. I love the direction that we take the story in Scream 4, catching up on these characters after so many years. I felt like we were reuniting with them on screen, but the mystery this time is much more compelling and the kills are extremely bloody and extremely gory. Scream 4 kind of course corrects what we had in Scream 3 thanks to Kevin Williamson returning to write the screenplay for Scream 4. Other than the first Scream, I think that this is probably the best script from Kevin Williamson. The comedy is on point, poking fun at the torture porn genre and reboots and just all the stuff in the modern age. The opening fake out with the various stab sequels, it's all fantastic. With this being the first Scream film to involve social media in it, you can definitely tell they had a lot more fun invigorating the franchise with all that fun new material, adding a lot more layers to the jokes and then the scares as well on top of it. I think it all still holds up even a decade afterwards. Sidney, Dewey, and Gale once again are a delight, and I think it's just such a great testament to this franchise that they're able to bring these characters back in every installment. I just love seeing these characters on screen, even if they have to face Ghostface once again for the 4th time in this film. But what makes it much better, I think, than some of the other sequels is the characters. I think this has some of the best new characters in the franchise. Kirby especially is the big standout for me. Hayden Panettiere played that character so well, and she's probably my favorite of the characters that aren't the main cast in all the films. Even the Ghostface reveal at the end of the film with Jill and Charlie being the killers is one of the more solid reveals in my opinion, because it enhances the messaging of social media fame that Jill wants so badly, orchestrating this whole entire thing, being the sole survivor of this film. Then of course, Sidney Prescott, being Sidney Prescott, has to show her who the real boss of the franchise is, but it was a good plan up until that point. Scream 4 always will be kind of sad because this is the final Scream film that Wes Craven was able to direct before he sadly passed away, but I can at least say I think that he went out on a high note with Scream 4. At number 2, we have Scream, the new Scream that just came out. What a big surprise this film ended up being. Of course, I'm not going to delve too deep into this film because it just came out, but I had a blast with the new Scream. Out of most of the sequels, I think this does the best job blending the comedic element and the horror elements together. The film does such a great job paying respects to the original film, but also still feels fresh enough to have fun new ideas on its own, some great horror, some great scares. Ghostface, once again, has some pretty great gruesome kills in the film. Some of them are pretty shocking. With a large portion of the new film being about legacy, I did love the inclusion of the legacy characters like Sidney, Gale, and Dewey. I think they bring a great spark to the film, but I do like a lot of the new cast as well. I think some of the characters in this are probably the best of the Scream franchise, outside of Kirby, of course. As a whole, it did a great job keeping me guessing on who potentially could be Ghostface in this film, and I had a lot of fun just trying to guess who it was. It was very tough deciding between which I'd put at number 2 and number 3 because I love Scream 4 so much, but I think that this film slightly edges it out because there's a couple of different elements of this film that I like a little bit more than Scream 4, but both of these sequels are great. I highly recommend checking out Scream when it actually hits theaters, well, I guess this weekend. And at number 1, Scream, the first film in the franchise called Scream. You knew this film had to be the number 1 film in the franchise. The original Scream is just an all-time horror classic and probably one of my personal favorite horror films of all time. What Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson were able to do here was just so iconic, and how it rejuvenated the horror genre of the 1990s with its great blend of self-aware humor, and balancing that with a perfect level of scares and mystery. Right from the very opening of the film, it sets the tone for a very intense experience. Drew Barrymore and Ghostface conversation starts out kind of friendly at first and then turns very sinister right on a dime. I think shocking us all because they killed off Drew Barrymore in the first 15 minutes of the film when it looked like she was going to be one of the main stars. Mystery unfolding in the original film is probably the most tense it ever is, with Ghostface taking out teens one by one in various creative ways. I think this is probably my favorite of all the Ghostface performances. Roger Jackson is such a great voice, and I think he has some of the best lines in the original film. Whether it's lines from him or characters like Randy, there are so many lines in this film that are so quotable and iconic even after all these years that I still use personally to this day. That goes for the characters in Scream as well. I think part of why Scream is held in such high regard is the characters in the film are so fantastic. Sidney Prescott is just such a good protagonist. Even in this movie, her strength is shown so well in the face of danger, and she kicks so much ass. She's easily probably my favorite final girl. She's easily in the top 3, if not the number 1 spot. If that wasn't obvious to you by now, because I have her in my background, actually. Most of the main cast are a lot of fun. Gale, Dewey, especially Randy, giving us all the rules to how to survive a horror film. And the 2 killers in the film, Stu and Billy Loomis, such a chaotic duo, easily the best ghost faces in all of the franchise. Both Matthew Lillard and Skeet Ulrich just chew up the scenery every time they're on screen. Matthew Lillard, I think, is my favorite of the 2. He's just so fun and chaotic, but Skeet Ulrich is great too. The original Scream was just a trendsetter. So many films after this tried to replicate the film to varying levels of success, but you can't top the original in this case. Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson were just such a great duo together that they made this lightning in the bottle and then had this epic franchise that are still going 25 years after this. But there you have it. That's my ranking for all 5 Scream films put out to date. It's been a lot of fun talking a whole lot of Scream in this video, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. As I said in the very beginning of the video though, make sure you share your Scream rankings down below in the comments section, because I like to talk all things movies and TV with you guys in the comments section, and I'm very curious to see how you would rank the Scream franchise, because I think there's going to be some divisiveness in the top 3 or so without going into too many details. But anyways, thank you guys so much for my ranking of the Scream franchise. It's been a lot of fun. Make sure to leave a like on the video and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to update movie reactions, unboxings, and more on the channel. Till next time, I'll see you guys later.